Good morning and welcome to Melrose Unitarian Universalist Church. Our service today is called From Me to We, Growing Beyond Individualism. That's a lot of words. I am the Reverend Dr. Suzanne Intriligator. It's my privilege to be the minister of this congregation, and I must admit that I'm still recovering from that whole glass of champagne I had last night at the church auction, which was a fantastic event. And I did follow it with 4 glasses of Fresca, but they somehow didn't take away the effects. But it was a beautiful, beautiful evening, and I had a great time. And today, first of all, I think we have a special announcement from our chairs, Ann Easterbrooks and Doug Dicht, if you want to come forward and maybe come right up to the lectern here where the microphone is on and waiting for you. They have a special announcement for us. I think, whichever one. How about right there? That's good. Bill will get you. Thanks, Tara.
Hi, everybody. We are back from our night at the Oscars. We're a little tired. We took the red eye and just, landed this morning. And but we hope you had a great time. We had a fun time too.
Very fun. I mean, when else do you get to wear a jacket like this? Come on.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to borrow it, I'll keep it.
So we have a lot of people to thank, but I just want to show you the list. I don't know if you can see, but a long list of people. And rather than, you know who you are, and rather than call out people's names and potentially forget someone, I just want to thank everybody. Our auction committee, everybody who donated, everybody who bid, and everyone who came to the live auction last night and had fun with us. It was a great time.
Yeah, and the online auction was a lot of fun, too. If you happened to participate on that on Friday night, the bids were fast and furious, and it was amazing to watch it all happen on that website. So we're happy to say that our total gross earnings for the 2 auctions, ticket sales, raffle ticket sales, was $16,377. Not bad. And as Ann mentioned, it took many, many people to make this happen, and it was a lot of fun.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Back from the brink, safe from extinction.
Wow. And it was super fun. Oh, I think I'm echoing again. Excuse me. That should be better. Wow. Well, again, thank you to Ann and Doug. Thank you to the whole auction team. Thank you to everyone who was there last night. It raised a lot of funds, and it also was a lot of fun. So just a couple of quick words about today's worship. If you're here with us in person, I want to remind you that we're doing Joys and Sorrows on paper right now. So get some paper in the back of the room and hand it to our usher, Adrienne, and she will bring them up later and read them aloud. If you're in our Zoom room, I will be reading those aloud. You'll be able to type them into the chat. Today's host in our Zoom room is Janice Bissix. Thank you for your help, Janice. We appreciate you. And a special welcome today to the Unitarian Society of East Brunswick, New Jersey. Hello, how are you guys? Their minister, the Reverend Karen Johnston, is away today, and she asked me if I would host them on Zoom. And I said, sure, we got plenty of room, more the merrier, so come on in. We are widening the circle, literally and figuratively today, so yay for New Jersey. Just a couple of quick words about next Sunday, which is going to be a big Sunday, I think, in our church life. First of all, bring some food and bring some junk. It's Food First Sunday, and we always collect for our local food pantries. We'd be happy to fill up the bin, the green bin in the hallway. Secondly, we're collecting small bits of junk because RE next weekend is making a junk sculpture. Yes, our K through 6 RE is meeting next Sunday during worship. Did you hear that, parents? So please bring your kids and please be here together because we're going to have a great kickoff for our pledge drive this year, starting next Sunday, and we'll follow it, I hope, with a real coffee hour outside with food and drinks. That's what Dan says. It's not a real coffee hour if we don't have food, and we're hoping to do that next Sunday. So that should be fun if the weather permits. That will be followed by our first monthly anti-racism discussion, which will be happening in the parlor and hybrid on Zoom. If you'd like to join by Zoom, you can do that. And after that will be our one-off version of the Way of Integrity book group. There is a 3-meeting session already happening, but we're also offering a 1-meeting session. And again, that's next Sunday at 2, also at hybrid, so you can come here in person or you can join us on Zoom. That's a lot of stuff happening next week, but let's, for now, get started with this week. Welcome to worship, everybody. I'm glad to see you. And we start always with our moment of greeting one another. So we switch to gallery view on Zoom. Oh, Bill is on top of things. People are already here. We wave to each other. Hello, everybody. Oh, yeah, we do have some extras from New Jersey walking with us today. Hi, everybody. And we shoot hugs to people in the room and say hello. Good morning. You're all looking good. For a bunch of people who had too much champagne tonight, you look better than I do. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I call us to worship this morning with these words from someone called Morgan Mann Willis, as quoted in a book called Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown. Look at the anatomy of trees as one of nature's examples of successful organizing. Trees show us that our power is in our ability to both be fiercely centered and grounded, but also infinitely reaching for our unique sources of energy and light and growth. Each tree's elements are reliant on one another, but totally unique in form and function. There's no competition or pressure to be the root or the trunk or the buds. Each tree is a whole universe, a master delegator, a puzzle and a puzzle piece. Trees have encouraged me not to worry so much about making everyone feel important and to focus instead on how to create systems where everyone is important and everyone is clear on how their work is unique and crucial and totally interconnected with everyone else. Here ends our call to worship this morning. Now, with UUs everywhere in America, in New Jersey, around the world, we light the symbol of our faith, the flaming chalice. This morning, it will be lit by our long-term dynamic duo members, Nancy Nichols and Michael O'Connor. They will do a 3-part reading. First Michael, then Nancy, then the whole congregation has a part, which we will put on the slide up here.
So as Suzanne said, this reading is in 3 parts. I'm going to read the first part, Nancy the second, and then all of us together the third. The reading is Bold and Courageous Together by Reverend Eric Hewitt. The word courage comes from the Latin cor, which means heart. According to the poet Mark Lipo, the original use of the word courage meant to stand by one's core, a, quote, striking concept that reinforces the belief found in almost all traditions that living from the center is what enables us to face whatever life has to offer.
To encourage means to hearten, to impart strength and confidence. This is our work as a religious community, to encourage one another to be bold in engaging the world around us, as well as what scares us internally, to give one another the confidence and the heart to live as fully as possible.
With full hearts, we affirm our relationships with one another. We recognize our agency and our connective power. And we accept our responsibility to be bold and courageous. We light this chalice symbol of all that we are, all that we have done together, and all that we will be, as our shared ministry encourages those within and beyond our walls.
Our opening hymn today is "This Is My Song," as recorded by the Minneapolis vocal octet Cantus in the early days of the pandemic. Today we sing this song as a prayer for Ukraine and for the Russian people who are standing up against this war at great personal risk. Please rise in body or in spirit to join in singing "This Is My Song."
If you would remain standing and join me in the words of our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. This is our great covenant, one with another and with our God.
Through every land, by
be seated. And now it's time for our story. The state of our world seems so fragile, so full of distress, so full of crises everywhere. How can we manage? Today, I'm excited to introduce you to one of our most important contemporary philosophers. I can take this off. And movement strategists. Are the people at home seeing me? They are, okay. I'm not on the confidence monitor, still have the slide up. Oh, but you're ahead of me. Okay, thank you, Bill. I want to introduce you to this important thinker named Adrienne Marie Brown. She is using wisdom from nature to help chart a path forward for all of humanity. Since we are hybrid and high-tech and also experimenting with what we call the story space, I thought I might use this opportunity today to let Adrienne introduce herself directly to all of you. For this segment, I have borrowed and edited a piece from a clip from 2017 from a PBS series called The Laura Flanders Show. After the clip, we'll do a quick dive into one piece of Brown's wide-ranging ideas. So, without further ado, Adrienne Marie Brown.
Organizing for what we want, building collaborative strategies, and learning better ways of relating to one another and the planet. Adrienne Marie Brown talked about all that and more when I met with her recently in Detroit. She's a social justice facilitator, a pleasure activist, and the author of Emergent Strategy, Shaping Change, Changing Worlds.
Emergent strategies are ways of looking at the world, the natural world that we're a part of, and searching for collaborative efforts. Like, where does collaboration happen? Where is right relationship happening between humans and the planet, between different parts of the planet, and what can we as a species learn about how to be in right relationship with each other and with the planet that we're living on. We're filming this in September, and we've just come through a week where there were 3 hurricanes, an earthquake, a potential tsunami. There was flooding, there's droughts, there's a fire raging the entire West Coast. At the same time, all the news that's coming out of the White House is devastating for our folks. We have people who are like, DACA is the thing that has kept my family together, the thing that has allowed me to be in the place that I'm from. Everything feels like it's so heavy and so intense, and how do we survive this moment? It doesn't feel like we can. And emergent strategy posits actually all of these changes. These are something that we need to figure out how we embrace and how we also shape them. So emergent strategy is really life moves towards life, longing moves towards longing. And if we're not also organized towards what we really want and what we long for, we will always settle into just reacting and trying to stop something bad from happening. All successful life is adaptable, opportunistic, tenacious, interconnected, and fecund. Understand this, use it, shape God. So from that, I would say emergent strategy is learning how to be fractal. Small scale reflects a large scale. How to be adaptive in right relationship to change, but also with intention. Because if you just change all the time, you're just changing all the time, you're just a mess, you're just a leaf blown in the wind. But changing with an idea of like, oh, I'm a bird, I'm trying to get to Mexico for my migration, a storm came, how do I still get myself to Mexico? Then nonlinear and iterative, resilient, being in a practice of transformative justice, which I think we are just beginning to understand what transformative justice is or could be for us as a species. And then interdependent and decentralized, and always creating more possibilities. One of my favorite examples right now from the world of nature has been in this flooding that's been happening with the hurricanes, watching how ants have come together to survive. And they basically create a foundation of their own bodies, like a bottom layer of their own bodies, that then other ants climb on top of until they create this floating mound that then is able to make sure that the majority of them survive until they come across something that is a higher ground. Right now, we are drowning in the overwhelm of this political moment and the overwhelm of hard decisions. How do we reach out and hold on to each other, knowing that holding on to each other makes us a more stable body that can actually float and not pushing each other down, not pushing each other under. one thing I say in here several times is what you pay attention to grows. So this administration wants us to put all of our attention on them, and I would rather starve them of all of that attention and put all of it on the amazing work that's happening here in Detroit or in Jackson, in the Bay, or in all these other places, St. Louis, where people are like, we are figuring it out, we're surviving. And that's what I'm going to keep doing.
I've missed that last point that she made. She says several times, what we pay attention to grows. So this was made in 2017, and she said, this administration wants us to put all of our attention on them, and I would rather not do that. I would rather focus on what we want to grow in the world. So from there, I wanted to take us just to one piece of this. As you can see, it's kind of a wide-ranging system, but I wanted to focus in on this thing called fractals. That was a quick introduction. So why does Adrienne Marie Brown say that to be effective, social movements must be fractal? What does that mean? What is a fractal? Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, that's what I meant. Okay, how about the one after that? What is a fractal? Okay, fractals are complex patterns that are self-similar across different scales. They're created by repeating a simple process over and over in an ongoing feedback loop. They are found all over nature, from our fingertips to the shape of galaxies. Here you can see in this fern leaf, if you could see closer, when it's all balled up, every single tendril in there reflects the same shape as the whole of the branch. And as it unfolds, you can see that even close up, every single tiny leaf on that branch is the same shape as the whole branch, is the same shape as the bigger branch, is the same shape as the whole plant. The whole plant is a fractal. And you can see that same kind of thing happening here. On the left is an oak tree, and you can see the way that the branches branch out from the biggest to the next, to the medium, to the smaller, in a fractal shape. And the same thing is happening here on the right with a river basin. The bigger tributaries and the tiny and the smaller ones, they're all branching out in fractal patterns. And then, of course, another popular fractal pattern is the spiral, which we see all over nature. On the far left, that's a seashell called a nautilus, a sunflower, and on the right, that's a galaxy, and that's a spiral shape. So, what do fractals have to do with social justice movements, you might ask? For Adrienne Marie Brown, they give us a metaphor, a way of understanding the purpose of our life and the right size of our own lives and our own actions in relation to the rest of the world. Adrienne Marie Brown writes, I first became aware of fractals in 2004 when I was doing electoral organizing, though I didn't have a word for it then. I saw clearly then that at the local level, we Americans don't know how to do democracy. We don't know how to make decisions together, how to create generative compromises, how to advance policies that center justice. It was and is clear to me that until we can have some sense of how to live our solutions locally, we won't be successful at implementing them, implementing a just governance system regionally, nationally, or globally. So many of our organizations working for social change are structured in ways that reflect the status quo. We have singular charismatic leaders, top-down structures, money-driven programs, destructive methods of engaging conflict, unsustainable work cultures. And all of that has got to go. This may be the most important single element to understand, that what we practice at the small scale sets the patterns for the whole system. In a fractal conception, I am a cell-sized unit of the human organism. And I have to use my life to leverage a shift in the system by how I am as much as how I do things. This means actually being in my life, and it means bringing my values into my daily decision-making. Each day should be lived on purpose. At a collective level, this is the invitation to practice the world we wish to see in the current landscape. The measure of our success is not just what we stop, but by how many of us feel and can say out loud, I am attending to the crises of my time with my best self. I am of communities that are doing our collective best to honor our ancestors and all humans to come. Each week, we take time out to center ourselves for prayer and meditation, a time for each of us to connect with the holy, however it is we experience the holy. Let's start by relaxing into our seats, letting our bodies settle, feeling our feet on the floor. Let us breathe in and out together. To enter into our shared meditation, we join together in our centering song. After that, we sit in a few minutes of silence. Then we speak to one another of our joys and sorrows, and then I will lead us in prayer. Our worship theme for the month of February is widening the circle. It is a time to consider how we can open our minds, open our hearts, open our communities to growth and change. Our centering song for the month expresses these goals. Here is our choir with Circle Round for Freedom. We sing it twice. Please join in as you like, and remember afterward, 2 minutes of silence.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for
Every Sunday, we share with one another the joys and sorrows of our lives, the personal milestones of our days together. We listen to one another with openness and compassion, letting our sharing knit us together as an ever stronger community. First, if you have a sorrow to share, please type it into the chat box and I will read them aloud. From Don Bissix, a sorrow. It has been 17 years since the death of my sister, Rachel Bissix. She was a singer-songwriter who performed in this church and helped us set up the church's Emerson Coffee House. Rebecca writes, my beloved Aunt Peggy of Raleigh passed away on Wednesday at the age of 86 from cancer. She was a goddess and a spitfire, and I'm grateful for her example and love in my life. From Jean T., a candle for our member Stella and her loved ones in Ukraine. From Kathy K., for the people of Ukraine. From Chuck Foley, a candle of sorrow for my sibling-in-law Bobby, who lost both their father and mother this week at age 89 and 87, respectively. Candle of concern for myself. This is from Chuck. I will undergo surgery on Thursday, a pandemic-delayed hernia repair. From Alex Leach, a candle of sorrow for the people of Ukraine. From Florence, a candle of love and support for my brother having surgery soon. I'd like to also add a candle for our church administrator, Therese, whose father died this past week. That's one of the reasons why we didn't get a worship reminder out this morning. It fell to me, and I missed it. So we're trying to take care of Therese this week. Do we have any paper sorrows? You might have to turn that one on. Good.
We have two sorrows. A sorrow from Mary Beth. My heart is broken for the Ukrainians who are being attacked and killed in their homeland. Another is prayers for my Afghani friend, Roya, who has been in a refugees camp for 1 year.
Let us pause now and hold these sorrows in our hearts and in our minds. Let us reach out to all who are hurting today with our love and our compassion. And let us light one candle now for all of these sorrows and for the love we feel for those who are hurting. Now I ask for all the joys that you would like to share. Go ahead and type them into the chat box. I noticed earlier there were lots of chat box hellos to people in New Jersey. Shout out to Cinnamonson, New Jersey. Alex is from Morristown. Martha is from Princeton and Newark. Oh, she was visiting there last week. So welcome to our friends from New Jersey. Alex says, joy for the success of the auction last night. And thanks to Ann, Doug, Beth, and Tug for being such great hosts and auctioneers. And another joy from Stacy. She says, happy 10th birthday to Ethan. Do we have any joys on paper? Okay, let's take a moment and hold all of those in our hearts too. And send out our thanks to everyone who shared a joy. These joys help us connect to one another and to the beauty of life. Please, if you would, Adrienne, go ahead and light the other candle as a beacon that shines out all of our thanks and gratitude for the many blessings in our lives. Thank you, Adrienne. Please join me in the spirit of prayer. I borrowed these words from the Reverend Jen Grayson. Spirit of life and love, our hearts are aching today as we watch with fear and terror what is being inflicted on Ukraine. We pray from afar, seeing people flee in fear, praying in the streets, gripped by an uncertainty that echoes in our own hearts. We have known uncertainty and fear these last 2 years of the pandemic, and while we are aware it is nothing like war, we are reminded of our ties to the humanity of those we have never known all over the world. We pray for the parents trying to protect their children in Ukraine. We ache for children as forces outside their control shatter their world. We ache for those doing what they can to flee the movements of nations. And we pray for those who cannot flee. May the world not turn its face away. Even in these moments when we as individuals must rest our spirits, may our thoughts and prayers become actions that end war and the threat of war forever. Amen. Now is the time for our offertory. Our church is a self-supporting organization funded entirely by your generous annual pledge. You may contribute to our weekly collection plate, which we split every month with a deserving cause. Either way, you can use the orange button in the top right-hand corner of our website, melroseuu.org. Folks here in the room can leave their donations in the gold plate at the back of the room on your way out. For February, our giving partner chosen by our anti-racism team is Arise Springfield. Arise is a 30-year-old community organization based in Western Massachusetts that centers the voices and needs of poor people, working on issues like housing, homelessness, and criminal justice. Half of our collection plate this month will go to Arise. And now, while people are donating, we have glorious offertory music. Have you ever wondered what it might sound like if the whole world sang the same song together at the same time? That's the vision behind a group called Playing for Change, which started 20 years ago, before the pandemic, filming musicians and creating what they call songs around the world. Striving to connect the world through music, they have now made more than 400 videos spanning 60 different countries. And they created a foundation to enhance music education for kids in Africa. For me, this following Playing for Change piece really captures the essence of their work and shows us what is possible in this world today. It takes a classic, beloved song, which I think for those of us of a certain age is very special, and adds to it sounds from around the globe, creating something so much more richer and more beautiful and more profound. What would it sound like if the whole world prayed together the same prayer at the same time? I think it would sound like this. This is Peace Train by Playing for Change. A reading this morning from Adrienne Marie Brown's book, Emergent Strategy. With our human gift of reasoning, we have tried to control or overcome the emergent processes that are our own nature, the processes of the planet we live on and the universe we call home. The result is crisis at each scale we are aware of, from our deepest inner moral sensibilities to the collective scale of climate and planetary health and beyond, to our species in relation to space and time. For instance, humans so far have generally deified and aligned with the king of the jungle or forest, lions, tigers, bears. And yet so many of these creatures, for all their isolated ferocity and alpha power, are going extinct. Roaches, ants, deer, fungi, bacteria, viruses, bamboo, eucalyptus, squirrels and vultures and mice and mosquitoes and dandelions and so many other collaborative life forms continue to proliferate, survive, grow, sustain. I want to understand how we humans do that, how we earn a place on this precious planet. Here ends our reading. I need some water. On July 4th, 1845, Henry David Thoreau went to live in a tiny cabin on the shores of Walden Pond in some woods owned by his famous friend, the former Unitarian minister, Ralph Waldo Emerson. I went to the woods because I wanted to live deliberately, Thoreau famously wrote of it later in his book Walden, to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. Wow. To live deliberately. That's a worthy goal. But what did that phrase mean to Thoreau? How did he mean to live deliberately? Well, Thoreau says on his very first page, to start with, he needed some time away, he thought. For 2 years and 2 months, quote, I lived alone, a mile from any neighbor in a house which I built myself, and I earned my living by the labor of my hands only. Really? I mean, is that possible for a person to live by my hands only? Was it possible in Thoreau's time, 180 years ago? Is it possible now? More importantly, why do we ask? Is it necessary or important to even try to live by my hands only? For me, this brings up a core point, both in Unitarian Universalism, in our faith, and in American culture as a whole. Since Thoreau's time, and even before it, Americans have debated about the proper place of individualism in American life and culture. And while Thoreau's work made important and lasting contributions to that discussion, it's also been used to add to and to augment the very worst American tendencies, I think. And now I would argue that excess of individualism impairs us from seeing our true human condition in this moment and what we might do about it. First, for Thoreau himself, was it possible to live by my hands only? No, it was not. Though generations of Americans have been raised on this vision of Thoreau as the archetype of rugged individualism, we have come to see in recent years that this was not the case, not literally true for him. He did actually plant and harvest beans at Walden, but he also picked apples from orchards that had been planted generations before by a community of freed slaves who were unwelcome in the town proper and settled in the Walden woods. Black Walden is a book that came out recently with these facts. Also, from other scholarship, we know that during his time at Walden, Thoreau went home. And then, whenever he needed a break from his aloneness, he went to his family home. His wilderness, after all, was only a 20-minute walk from his family home. And so he did go there for the occasional meal, to enjoy dinner and drinks with his family and friends. And yes, he brought his laundry home to his mother. So he was not self-sufficient. In fact, on one of his regular trips to Concord, in the middle of his Walden stay, Thoreau ran into the town jailer at the shoe repair place, and he was arrested on the spot for not paying his town taxes. It was a conscientious protest against slavery and against the war in Mexico. Thoreau spent one night in jail as a result, and that experience became the basis for his essay, Civil Disobedience, which, as we know, later proved fundamental to the life and work of Gandhi and MLK. So, the stereotype that we have of Thoreau, he was not a paragon of solitude. But if you look at, there's more nuances to the story. It's not just black or white. Thoreau and Emerson both contributed significantly to the development of our culture. Both stood up against conformity of all kinds, inspiring us to experience nature and spirit and God each in our own unique way. Emerson, of course, resigned from his post as a Unitarian clergyman in protest of doctrines that he found too restrictive. And he implored all of us in a famous speech, "Acquaint thyself at first hand with divinity." All of that individualism must be understood in its proper context. Both men were deeply embedded in the lively and rich intellectual community that was 19th century Concord. Along with the Alcotts and Nathaniel Hawthorne, Emerson and Thoreau enjoyed a rich social and literary life. And of course, after his 2-year part-time stint at Walden, Thoreau returned home to his family home and lived there with his sisters and aunt and uncle. Like all the transcendentalists, Emerson and Thoreau felt a deep connection to nature and all living things. They felt and wrote that all living things are connected. And they were both deeply conscious of moral and social responsibilities. Both of them took courageous stands against slavery. So on the whole, I would say for Thoreau, his time at Walden was maybe analogous to a young person's gap year today. He took time, a small amount of time away from family to organize his own identity and solidify his core self, and that's healthy. But then after 2 years, he went home again. He chose community over individualism, and somehow American culture tends to forget that about Thoreau. How does that story fit into the larger American story of individualism? Here I turn to the historian Heather Cox Richardson. She teaches at Boston College, and she writes a daily blog that many of us follow called Letters from an American. That inspired me to read her recent book called How the South Won the Civil War. Yeah, you heard that right, How the South Won the Civil War. It's surprising. Her thesis is that while the Confederacy may have technically lost the literal ground war that U.S. Americans fought from 1861 to 1865, Southerners, in fact, won the ideological war behind it. And in the guise of today's Republican Party, they continue to win it. Since the founding of our country, Richardson argues, Americans have invested in this myth of the self-made man. In the colonial period, their idol was the gentleman farmer, the man who carved out his homestead from the frontier and defended it from the British or the native people. That man was mythologized as hardworking and independent-minded, a pioneer, the ultimate individualist. Thomas Jefferson, Daniel Boone, John Wayne. The problem here, as Richardson points out, is that the self-made man, like Thoreau, that's a fiction. He never stands alone. He sits on top of an invisible hierarchy. Many other people whose labor is either unknown or unacknowledged. Native people who cleared the land and then were cleared from it. Women who did the harvesting and the cooking and the cleaning and the child rearing. Generations of enslaved people whose labor and lives were stolen from them systematically. Richardson argues that while, yes, the Civil War was indeed about slavery, it was also, on a deeper level, about the ordering of reality, about a worldview based on a human hierarchy of worth. At the top of the pyramid was the supposedly self-made American man, and below him all those invisible people who did the work without proper credit and without human rights. And as Richardson argues, the Civil War revamped that pyramid for a time, but Jim Crow righted it again and put all the people back in their supposedly right places for a time. And that then, after the Civil War, the self-made man morphed again. He shifted from the gentleman farmer to the rancher and cowboy, the Marlboro man, James Dean, Ronald Reagan. Today's conservatives will tell you that they are defending the self-made man, the individual's right to defend his home, his right to choose his religion, his doctor, his version of history. But underneath that, Richardson argues, remains a core belief in a hierarchical framework. The ladder of human worth, unchanged really since antebellum days. So today, when a person prioritizes their own comfort over the community's needs, say in not wearing a mask or not studying a certain history, we need to ask always, whose comfort is being prioritized and why? Do we really believe that this individual's rights should prevail over the whole, whose comfort is not being valued. How does rugged individualism play out in UU churches? Well, some people might follow Emerson and Thoreau and characterize us as the ultimate and individualistic religion. After all, isn't it true that you can believe anything and be a UU? Our principles affirm the worth and dignity of every person and the importance of every person's individual and unique spiritual journey. That's true. But that focus is forgetting that even before we even speak our principles, we say, the preamble, our congregation's covenant to affirm and promote these principles. That means that we come together as a community of communities to agree together on the set of principles. You can't just believe what you want here. Your beliefs need to align with the community's values, with the other principles. For example, you cannot be a Nazi and be a UU. It does not align with the other principles. And your beliefs and our congregation's beliefs need to align with the community of communities, the larger UUA. Like Emerson and Thoreau, we listen to the guidance of our own minds and hearts, but we do so within a bigger context, within a vibrant community conversation, within larger social bonds that we take seriously. There are no self-made people here, not here or anywhere. And so as we move into the 21st century, we need to interrogate this history and tradition, especially as our nation becomes more and more diverse demographically, especially as our denomination struggles to live out its commitment to anti-racism and to widening the circle of concern. Especially as we, as a global community, struggle to face up to climate crisis, to learn how to adapt to the ever-changing environment. This is why thinkers like Adrienne Marie Brown are so important. She might be our generation's answer to Emerson or Thoreau. She looks to nature for inspiration and finds there not merely a way to hide from civilization, but maybe a way to reinvent it or to save it from itself. I think about the ants that she talked about, floating together in a mass, working as a whole so that some of them might find higher ground, might be saved. Right now, we are drowning in the overwhelm, she said in 2017. All these interlinked crises. How do we hold on to each other in this moment, like the ants, knowing that together we can form a more stable body that can actually float? It reminded me of that story that was so clear just a few years ago. There was that family vacationing in Florida, remember? And two of the kids went out to swim off the beach, and the kids got caught in a riptide and they were drowning. And two of the adults swam out to help them, but they got caught in the riptide, and suddenly the whole family was drowning, and people on the beach were watching. And suddenly somebody had the brilliant idea. They formed a human chain. Remember this? Like 100 people held hands and reached all the way out 100 yards, and the family climbed down the chain to the beach. It's just like those ants. One at a time, we can't save that family. There's no way. One at a time, we die. No one is a self-made man. All of us depend on everyone else every day for our food and our shelter and our culture. To pretend otherwise is just foolish. To deny the people around me who are helping me is to dehumanize them and to dehumanize myself. I wish to live deliberately, said Henry David Thoreau. And so he went to separate himself off. What does it mean for us to live deliberately today in a world full of crises? Adrienne Marie Brown would tell you it means the opposite. Don't separate yourself away. Instead, build all of those relationships laterally. Let go of the hierarchies, even the unconscious ones that we have. They're based on the delusion of separation, the delusion of rugged individualism, of self-made anything. To connect with one another slowly and with intention, at the speed of trust, the way that a fern unfurls in the sun, sideways. This is how we would build social movements that endure. Movements without hierarchies or leaders. Movements that cannot be shattered by egos or by assassins. Movements that will get us, like the ants, to higher ground. Movements like the Me Too movement. No leaders. The Arab Spring. Black Lives Matter. The Ukrainian resistance. Decentralized, leaderless, sustainable. This may be the most important element to understand, says Adrienne Marie Brown, that what we practice at the small scale sets the patterns for the whole system. In a fractal conception, I am a cell-sized unit of the human organism. I have to use my life to leverage a shift in the system by how I am as much as by the things I do. This means actually being in my life and bringing my values to my daily decision making. Every day should be lived on purpose. And at a collective level, it is the invitation to practice the world we wish to see in the current landscape. The measure of our success is not just what we stop, but how many of us feel and can say, I am attending to the crises of my time with my best self. I am of communities that are doing our collective best to honor our ancestors and all the humans to come. For me, it's like that offertory song. The original is great, but when you hear all of those people singing it together with all the different voices and sounds, it is so much more beautiful. So may we be together. May we be able to say, I am attending to the crises of my time with my best self. No one stands alone. Let this be our song. Please join in our closing hymn, Draw the Circle Wide. Stand as you are willing and able.
Draw the circle wide.
remain standing, if you will, and join me in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you. Our service has ended. You may be seated. People in the room, please enjoy a very brief postlude from Tara on the piano, while people in the Zoom room, please be welcome to stay for a few minutes of warm conversation. And I think afterwards, after the postlude, we'll all keep our masks on and move to Parish Hall for conversation. Thank you so much, everybody, for worshiping with us today.